So I hope this answers your question. I know you are straight out with time, but yes, we do have, I've worked a lot with CAFOR and in various countries across Africa and part of the world, even in the UK where I was based. And part of my job was to empower communities and making sure that everyone was, had a say in the development of that community. And that included as well people with disability, Down syndrome, severe disabilities, but the way you approach them, you don't approach them in exactly the same way as everybody else. Everyone, you have to tailor it according to their specific needs. So to answer your question in short, yes, we do have policies that are aligned with making sure that no one is left behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Maybe for Nkomoko, Dr. David, I know you have been working in supporting entrepreneurs, especially returnees, IDPs, and how do you see the ecosystem in responding to the needs of this marginalized group, and what are you doing here to fill the gap in the ecosystem?
Thanks so much. I think we're privileged to sit here and discuss about our work. Going back to your question, at Komoko, we work with refugees and host communities. We operate in now currently in 5 countries, including Ethiopia, South Sudan, Chad, Kenya, and Rwanda. When we talk about inclusivity, I think the one thing that comes to mind is being intentional. So it's intentionality that matters. It's not just like shooting in the dark and kind of, at the end of the day, find some kind of outcome, but from the get-go, be intentional about what you do. In our case, for example, from the start, from recruitment all the way to providing the supports, we kind of try to be intentional in what we do. So inclusivity for us, for example, are this marginalized group of refugees, for example, who are in a country that they're not supposed to be. They're away from home, but they come with experience, they come with some kind of skill set, but we're not provided with a opportunity to kind of exercise that skill set, that knowledge, and kind of contribute to the bigger economy that they are in. So it's connecting them to that bigger economy. So you do this intentionally. When you do it intentionally, maybe you focus on women entrepreneurs. You focus on maybe people with disabilities. But the most important thing is to be intentional. At the end of the day, you'll be able to measure it. If you can measure it, there is a high probability you can improve it on the next stage. So for us, that's really important. As long as we want our work to be impactful, it's important to have that track record at every step of the way. So that's how we do it. So far in Ethiopia, we've worked in 3 regions, including Addis Ababa, in Benshangul Gumuz, and in the Somali region. We work in around 9 locations, trying to expand to other locations because the problem that we have is big. The work that we do is just a drop in the ocean. And when you have a bigger problem, either you go big or you go home. So it's really important. And in order to support them well, you have to be there, hand-holding them. It's not just going there, inspiring them and leaving them while inspired, but stay with them, give them a very hand-holding kind of experience, but provide them the support end to end, from onboarding them all the way to maybe giving them financing for their work, for their small businesses, because we focus on micro and small businesses so that they become at least a growing business at the end of the day and have a sustainable solution. So being there is very important. Having a boots on the ground is very important. Having the resources to deploy is very important. You can't push poor numbers with this kind of business model. It will cost you a lot. So maybe most funders might not be interested, but this is a sustainable way of doing it. So if I sum up the whole thing, it's being very intentional from the beginning and kind of tracking all those things so that we'll have a chance to improve on what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. The key message from his responses about intentionality, following up it and measuring it to see the performance, and I think providing end-to-end support for the SMEs. Maybe a follow-up question. As institution supporting returnees, what kind of challenges did you face, and what should be done to improve the ecosystem towards inclusivity?
Okay, thank you so much. I think the major challenge, the majority of our work is with refugees. So the major problem is getting the little things like getting a proper ID, getting a proper registration, implementing the directives, legal frameworks that are in place, like those passed in 2019, the right to work. So the major risk for us is, yes, the policies and guidelines are already there, but implementing them, execution is the biggest challenge for us. So that's what we're facing. So most of our entrepreneurs are forced to kind of rely on other person's identity to run their business, which will make it risky and not sustainable. So little things like having a proper ID, having a proper business license, having the chance to open a bank account and run your business and kind of implement all those necessary business transactions are the challenges. If we kind of overcome those things, I think, as we say, entrepreneurship is for everyone. It's also for refugees who can contribute to the bigger economy.
Yeah, maybe do you have any recommendation for the different actors in the ecosystem, like for the government, policy-wise, for the entrepreneurs themselves, and for any partner institution working in the ecosystem, like I think the Brook, yeah, because they are working in the
I think the biggest
acceleration and innovation.
The biggest buzzword around the ecosystem is collaboration, but it has to happen on its real sense. Collaborating in a real sense means, I think, not kind of duplicating our efforts, kind of using what we have as a feeder line so that we can achieve the outcomes which are better than in a silo. So partnership and collaboration are the major things, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you so much. I will forward the same question to Brooke. As you are working to support initial startups, acceleration, as an institution working in this ecosystem, what are the initiatives you are working to make this ecosystem more accessible to different group of people, and what kind of challenges did you observe, and what is your recommendation? Thank you.
Great. A lot has been said already in the morning, I believe, so I would focus on the things that have not been addressed in a way. And when we talk about inclusivity, I think it starts from the conception of programs and interventions. Unless otherwise we start being inclusive from the get-go, then we cannot really materialize true and deeply rooted inclusivity, right? It would be shallow and superficial at the end. So when we do programs, when we think and also design programs, we have continuous assessments, continuous feedback mechanisms. We converge and have conversations with relevant stakeholders in multiple areas that we work in. All the programs that have been mentioned earlier in the morning, they are carried out in partnership with entities that focus on supporting physically disabled people. you know, they are also included. We are very much conscious about geographical inclusion and exclusion as well, not only a gender-based male-female inclusion and exclusion. So we do try to be intentional to consult them from the program design on. Our digital systems, they have assistive technologies integrated to them. So we, as much as possible, we try to be inclusive in that regard. And not only from the design, then also in the engagement of the young people. How do we really make them engaged, and how do we really become inclusive is something that we are extremely intentional on, to borrow David's words, right? So how do we communicate a call for application? How do we communicate a call for, you know, some program participation? Is it the usual social media platforms and mass media? Then where would the not so included participants and potential targets would get, where would they get the information from? So we need to be deliberate about those, starting from not only setting 40%, 50% need to be women, we need to have a percentage of, you know, physically disabled people. We need to go beyond that and be able to communicate that these opportunities are available and make that the announcements are going out through channels that they have access to. So inclusivity goes to this extent as well. And in the program engagement and implementation, the percentage of our staff, you know, who are you engaging with on a daily basis, that also needs to be very much thought about. Otherwise, someone from a different cultural background, from a different gender, male, female, that dynamics by itself has a level of exclusionary implications that are not yet really very well addressed, because the bigger picture of proportion, right, 40%, 50% of participation, we are so much focused on that. So the quality of our interventions and their inclusivity nature is relatively not very well dealt with. So engagement to this level is also extremely important, and we do that. And then how do we champion, who do we bring to the front? You know, examples and champions are very important. So doing that as well, making sure that is this panel inclusive, you know, who are we portraying, who are we putting forward, those things, and giving coverage over the media, that those things are also extremely important. So we try to be as deliberate as possible in our way of intervention in our programs. Thank you.
Maybe a follow-up question. I think you are supporting initial startups. So do you have any specific initiative to include in your program people with disability or people in a remote area, especially in Ethiopia, who may not have access to internet as well?
So we can only do these kind of things through partnerships, right? So we are not experts in assistive technologies and other things, but our expertise is in entrepreneurship development, in supporting talent and converting it into a market-ready business idea and business. So through that journey, we consult with experts in inclusivity. In our programs, as much as we can, we try to be accessible and conscious, but we really do not have specific programs for women, let's say, or for physically challenged people. We do not have those kind of programs, but we try to ensure as much as possible whenever they are part of our program, that they would not be missing out, and they would be always supported so that they can actually unleash full of their potential. So this is that we are currently doing. Thank you.
Yeah. So here also being intentional in program design and also collaboration and partnership are stand out in Brooke's reflection as well. So I'll come to Samuel. Since you are working in International Trade Center, I just want to bring the cross-border collaboration. Even in our previous presentation, we have been hearing from the presenter, Africa is a huge market, but yet not, we are consumers, not producers. So we want to tap that market, and there must be, you know, a free entrepreneurs from Ethiopia need to be free to market their products to Ghana or Kenya, and likewise, entrepreneurs from Kenya need to come freely to Ethiopia. So, what are you doing to have this kind of regional integration to enhance free market access for African entrepreneurs?
Okay, thank you. Just to give the audience a little bit of context of who we are, we're the UN International Trade Center. So we are a mandate office of WTO and the United Nations. We're based in Geneva, but definitely we have many projects in Africa. The regional office for the UN International Trade Center is soon to be opened in Nairobi. It was supposed to be in Ethiopia, but due to different challenges, it's now moved to Nairobi. So what we do is basically trade. We support trade, focusing on developing countries. We support mainly small, medium enterprises to expand to international market, and we find our niche and expertise on that area. Focusing Ethiopia, we have a couple of projects, but one of the major projects that we are doing right now is the Netherlands Trust Fund 5 project, which is helping companies focusing on technology and agribusiness to expand to international markets. So we have different layers of engagement, which is, the first one is the policy level engagements that we try to work with the governments of a couple of African countries. Specifically for Ethiopia, we work with the Ministry of Innovation and Technology, Ministry of Labor and Skills, and other government organizations in systemic change. And when we talk about trade, of course, the regulation is very important. And we work with business support organizations, hubs, accelerators, in the same perspective, and of course, companies and startups as well. And coming back to your question, yeah, you're right. It's very difficult to do business in Africa. It's more expensive to trade within Africa than trading within Europe. Okay, so as an Ethiopian company or as a Kenyan company, I would rather work with a market opportunity outside of the continent than working within the continent. Okay, so in practical example, it would be very much expensive to open an office in Cape Town than opening an office in Netherlands. And this is something that we've been talking about for the past decades again and again. Yeah? Much have not changed, but we have seen so much progress. But again, the opportunities and the market opportunities that we have within the continent is very much big, and it's very untapped. The ones that are exploring and the ones that are really expanding in the markets of African countries are the ones that are coming from abroad, not the ones that are thriving within the continent. So within the ITC, in our organization, we specifically helping IT and outsourcing companies or BPO companies, as well as tech startup to expand to international market, but mainly within Africa, through different strategies. One of it being participating on regional international trade fairs. We highly focus in making sure that Ethiopia companies has a presence at international events. This is, I would put it as not very much used to with the local context. We don't see a lot of companies investing on exhibiting, let's say, in one of the events in Nairobi, as other African countries are doing. We always see a less of Ethiopian companies' participation in international trade fairs. Not only Ethiopia, but many of the East African countries. And this is something that we've really took as a challenge. So we've made sure to select big and a trade fair that really aligns with the market that we are putting to expand. So we make sure to have companies that are ready to expand to international market participate on this international trade fairs. Just 2 weeks before, I took a delegation of companies from Uganda, Senegal, Ghana, and Ethiopia to African Tech Festival in Cape Town. Just 2 weeks before that, GITEX, Dubai. So this kind of participations are where we see one of opportunities to expand to regional markets. But beside that, there's also a B2B missions, right? So not just participating, but actually assessing a market and finding a company that would fit into the market to expand. So we did a B2B mission to Nairobi, taking 9 Ethiopian companies, right? 9 Ethiopian companies. It was an assessment of almost, we've worked on it for 7 months and assessing what company should come to Nairobi, what kind of meetings should we arrange, what kind of visits should we arrange, this kind of initiatives, right? So by the time the companies went to the mission, it was pretty much said and done. It's mostly for them to execute and partner and more like to sign a contract. So this kind of initiative we took part in the past couple of years. But I guess the biggest, I don't know if I could jump into the challenge part that I saw. Can I? Okay. So I think one of the things that we noticed is, as Ethiopian, I think we grew up in a very isolated environment. So when we talk about expanding, it's very rare that we talk about outside of the country, right? It's mainly expanding to, of course, Ethiopia is a big market, but having that mindset of expanding to regional markets, the international market is very small. Under my portfolio, I have around 46 companies, tech startups and IT companies. Even the biggest companies that has employees more than 600, 700 employees, we saw that mindset of a little bit, I wouldn't call it being afraid of other markets, but a little bit of limitations in terms of feeling that they don't have the right talent, feeling that they don't have the right product or services, but more like they're very competitive when it comes to other companies within Africa. So I think the biggest challenge that we saw is in the mindset of really we need to go out of Ethiopia and open office. We really need to go out of Ethiopia and sell our services or sell our products. So that has been one of the challenges that we saw. But again, beyond this small initiative that we've been doing, we also try to connect it with the systemic change, what's already happening, the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is already mentioned earlier. So the AFCFTA is, when it was announced, it's mainly the development organizations, or the big organizations that we're happy. The small companies doesn't really understand what it is, because I mean, we've had a different consultation workshop, different events. We see more government, more development organizations, and more ecosystem builders participation than companies, because it should be more practical. What is in it for me as a tech company, as someone that is managing or that is doing marketing strategies for different institutions, or as someone that is working on agri-tech, as someone that is working on e-commerce? What is in it for me, and how can the FCFT help me? That understanding also is a big gap that we saw, right? So we try to bridge that between this is the practical way of the practical benefit of AFCFTA for a small business in Ethiopia. And again, I think beyond understanding also comes with the inclusivity of entrepreneurs in terms of negotiation, right? So when the states, or when the African states, heads of states negotiate the AFCFTA, we've seen a lot of inclusivity within the other countries to engage the private sector. Sorry to say this, but it's not what we saw in Ethiopia. There has been a little bit of closed doors when it comes to the negotiation of the FCFTAs. So we recently did the digital protocol workshop, where we demanded the Minister of Trade and Integration to make it the negotiation public in terms of what are the annexes. That actually happened, right? So this kind of inclusivity is also really important, where we hear the companies that are actually trading, and we negotiate in behalf of those companies. But beyond that, creating that understanding of how this would benefit the companies, right? So this is more or less, I think I jumped from one idea to an idea, but this is more or less that we try to do in the past couple of years.
Okay, thank you. I just want to re-emphasize about, you mentioned, if I quote your words, it's expensive to open a subsidiary in Cape Town. And there is also less Ethiopian companies exhibiting abroad, and also the mindset and everything is a challenge from the Ethiopian perspective. So what do you recommend, maybe entrepreneurs themselves, or there are different institutions working, to give awareness, to provide training like our institution EDI, to make Ethiopian entrepreneurs more visible in the African market?
Okay. So I think speaking on what we saw as the lesson that was learned when we implement the projects, there's a couple of things that we need to really focus and prioritize on if we really need to have the next unicorn Ethiopian company, right? So we cannot talk about being a unicorn without talking about expansion within other countries. Of course, Ethiopia has a big market, 120 million population is big, but still, we need to go out of the country. We need to think about expanding to regional markets, international markets. I guess the first thing that is really important that I would suggest is regulation. We, as Ethiopian, but working with the UN International Trade Center, my colleagues that are handling different countries, we always have this team meeting, and I notice how a lot of things that Ethiopia has to do compared to even neighboring countries. So regulation is really important. Nurturing, creating an environment where companies can expand, can be supported to expand to international markets. So a lot of countries, when they do a delegation, when they do a mission, taking their delegation for a different kind of events, for a different kind of meetings, they take their private sector with them. I'm talking about even African countries. So we have to see that. We have to, beyond the other negotiations, beyond the other partnerships and relationships, business partnerships is also important. That needs to be supported by and backed by the government. Simple example, I try to sponsor around 8 companies to go to Barcelona to attend the FinTech event. Out of the 6 companies, 8 companies, 8 of them were denied for a visa. And this is, of course there are different factors, but this is, if it was backed by the government, because this is more a business relationship, it goes beyond a company's interest, it is a country's interest. So there is no anywhere you could say this happened and I need your support in that, because it has not been yet prioritized. If it was another delegation for other purpose, there might be a big means to go to the government and say, we need your back on this, but we haven't seen that. When we participate on events, we always put, for example, when we take a delegation of IT and outsourcing companies, we say outsource to Ethiopia. Most of the countries that has a big pavilion has their Minister of Innovation or Minister of Labors within their country that is responsible for the sector, that is also exhibiting and backing them. So for a big company, let's say one of the Microsoft wanted to outsource their 300 employees to Ethiopia. Beyond the company's expertise and beyond the company's capacity, they would ask, do you have a fertile environment? Does your government recognize the sector? Do you have this kind of support? So bringing in big clients, bringing in big markets requires government support. So the regulation is big, change on the mindset, which I've already mentioned. We have the capacity, we have the talent, we have a lot of things that we can, we have this company now, we need clients for you and we need to penetrate this market capacity allen. In not only speaking with the companies that we work with, but many companies within Ethiopia. But going going forward and putting yourself out there is very much difficult, and this goes with the mindset. And the last thing that I want to add is really coping up with what's happening. The talents that we have should really reskill Manilo. Well, skilling is one important thing, but also reskilling with what's happening with AI, with the global trends and with what's changing. We need to have reskilled environment, right? So the people that were outsourced a couple of years ago, we cannot really outsource them because the market opportunity has changed. And the talent that we present previous years ago and now is very much changed. Previously, if you have one IT talent, let's say 5 years ago, you can use that talent without changing it for 10 years. 5 years ago, you can use it for only, 5 years? But now, it's less than 2 years. So if you have a skill, it will only last for 2 years. So that means you need to reskill it every time. So as companies, as talents, as startups, and even freelancers, we need to have that reskill in order to cope up with the fast-growing environment of the African countries. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, thank you. So the takeaway from your reflection is we need to nurture companies to explore the African market, and the private engagement supported by the government, and when, as you suggested, maybe government official pay a visit to different countries and engaging the private sector is also one of your recommendations, which really catches my attention. And reskilling, the environment is very dynamic and the skill is changing, and now and then we need to have a private sector that can reskill, upskill their employees, the entrepreneurs themselves, according to the global trend. So coming back to Prof, I have similar question to you. So can you tell us maybe what you are doing? You are focusing on education and communication, targeting African youth, right, at CAFO? Yeah, yeah.
That's right, yeah, thank you.
So maybe about the regional integration, can you tell us your experience, and what do you think, what kind of barriers should be overcome to have a free movement of entrepreneurs among the continent?
Sorry, we at CAFO, although we are a separate entity, we work within the African Union, and we are there to reinforce and develop policies of the African Union. We are at the moment based with the ST department of the African Union, which relates to education, technology, and all that. But to answer your question, the policies are there. We've talked about the free trade agreement. There is an African passport. People don't know about it. There's an African passport, but I think it's only 2 or 3 presidents that hold it, but they don't. But even with that passport, they still need a visa to travel within the continent, which is a bit weird. Yes. So we believe that often we cannot be stuck at the political level, and we have to bring things down at the lower level, if you want, at the people level, and bring transformation at that level. Here, for example, we're talking a lot with EDI about the idea of expanding EDI beyond Ethiopia. So that answers some of the issues that my colleagues here have mentioned. Because I think the grass is always greener. We always think that elsewhere it's greener than at home. But actually, I always felt that Ethiopia was, compared to a lot of other African countries, a lot of others, not all, but a lot of other countries, Ethiopia was quite well advanced, and I think there's a lot of things that Ethiopia can share with the rest of the continent. For example, the fact that Ethiopia has been inward-looking was maybe had its benefit, because it has produced a lot of homegrown businesses. if you compare to, say, for example, in the Congo, for example, Kinshasa, most of the businesses are foreign-owned. So Ethiopia is in a better state, a better position in order to influence changes within the country, because you are the economic power. The businesses that are entrepreneurs that have developed across Ethiopia are in a better state, better position to influence policy change. And that is why policy is changing, because someone mentioned, I think you've mentioned 100 million, 120 million Ethiopian, but 120 million are not going to buy the same product. Out of 120 million, maybe 5 million, or maybe even less than that, are going to go for your product. So when one of the presenter earlier on was talking about border, and you've mentioned borders, and you've mentioned borders as well, this is the most important point. I think for a young entrepreneur, they need to be able to have the freedom to move across the continent. Otherwise, there's no need to have entrepreneurs. I grew up and lived in the UK pretty much all my life, and I was there when the United Kingdom joined the European Union, and I was there when it came out of the European Union, and I was there a few weeks ago when it started talking about rejoining somehow the European Union. It's not by accident. It's because they realize that by coming out of the European Union, how much they've lost in terms of power, in terms of economic clout and stuff like that. So getting back inside the European Union is very important, and they're talking about reviewing some of their policies. So bringing it back to here, to African context, to open the market in Africa is absolutely a must. And the reason why some of these policies are meant to be channeled by the African Union, but it's a very cumbersome, sometimes I call it a dinosaur machine. It takes a long time for it to turn around and to apply policy. So if we are waiting for those people at the top to change things, we'll be here forever. People are, Africa has about, I think 60% of African under 25. So they cannot wait another 20 years for things to change. They need things to change now in order for them to be able to make a change. So, and the idea of fostering changes, developing partnership, like we've signed a lot of partnership with universities here and abroad, with the continent and also outside the continent, just to help address the skill gaps and things like that in order to answer, to bring solutions. But the solutions cannot be, you've talked about, it's difficult to export, it's easier to export to Europe than it is to export to Africa. It's because often what happens is within Africa, we tend to think that it's better to export to Europe, so we develop products that are not really answering the questions that we need back home, but answering questions that they need over there. So we need to change that mindset as well and try to develop, because technology is to develop projects that are answering questions that are relevant for the African and the African market. I think if it's about changing mindsets as well. So we are working towards trying to enforce change by engaging with decision makers, but you don't engage with them by just sheer words. You have to demonstrate. And the fact that we've been talking with EDI about trying to bring their good works outside of Ethiopia, that shows also a willingness, that there is a desire within Ethiopia to expand. And I'm glad that we're having this conversation today, but also we had these discussions with previous decision makers here in Ethiopia about these very issues. So we're heading in the right direction, but there's still a little bit work to be done. Thank you.
Maybe, Prof, one follow-up question. I have read the MOU you signed with EDI, and that is really a very nice step forward to promote entrepreneurship and to address youth need. Maybe if it is not far from your background information, do you have any, because the African Union is supporting to achieve the 2063 goal. So is there any, because that really aim to ensure regional integration. So do you have can you provide us some information, what kind of macro level intervention are facilitated by the African Union?
Yeah, well, I hope no one will hold grudge on me on this, but 2063 is a long time. I think I'll be dead by then. So in order for me to be able to achieve or to enjoy what you're talking about, it needs to be sooner than 2063, right? So that's why we are trying, changes happen, like I was saying earlier on, changes happen at different levels. You can bring change either top down, or you can force change bottom up. So they're talking 2063 top down, but we will talk 2025, 2026 bottom up. So those are numbers. So it's about trying to find mechanism, trying to find the right partners with whom you can work, who share the same ideas, and with whom you can work with in order to achieve the changes that you want to bring.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. We should not stuck at political level, and we should start now at small level is, I think, the most inspiring message, Prof, you have forwarded. Maybe one last question for Brooke and Dawit. I think we need to also access continental resources to ensure a better entrepreneurship ecosystem. So in the morning presentation in Addis itself, we do have, I think, 150 plus incubators and accelerators. And I'm afraid whether these resources are even shared by other fellow Ethiopians in a very rural areas. But in order to bring innovation to flourish in African ecosystem, this kind of sharing resources is, I think, very important. So what is your recommendation to ensure these entrepreneurial resources are shared by the entrepreneurs operating in different countries in the continent? Brooke, over to you.
Great, a great question. So most of the innovation and entrepreneurship efforts, now it's changing, of course, that we wanted to do and that we have initiated in the country. Most of them have been inspired by experiences in either the Israel or either in the Silicon Valley or other European countries, where the economy and also the income level of the young people themselves can support them to travel to a certain concentrated area, call it the Bay Area or Tel Aviv Avenue or anything. They can go there, they can accommodate their livelihood and everything. The economy can handle that. And they can access highly concentrated support in a given location. But when we come to countries like Ethiopia, our economy cannot shoulder that. Someone from the far east corner of Ethiopia cannot really afford to fly into Addis or drive by bus to Addis and rent a house to be housed at one of the incubators we have from Atlas to Brass, right? I was on a panel the other day mentioning that the concentration is highly within that corridor, Atlas to Brass, right? So, but we need to think outside of that, and we need to go outside of that. Of course, it's not always possible to avail the programs. That is a problem. We do not have a problem of building infrastructures. We have over 2,000, now probably 3,000 youth centers across Ethiopia, right? But what kind of offerings, programs, elements are we offering to the young people using this infrastructure? It's human capital that we need. It's democratizing this talent, this support system across the regions that we need to do. And as our organization, what we do, because we have resources and we were able to do it, and not everybody can do that, so we need innovative solutions for that. But what we do is we try to reach every single young person in the countries that we work in Ethiopia, Rwanda, and Kenya, with a call for application as much as possible. We push really, really strongly on call for applications, but then we provide support to them, starting from submitting the applications. Sometimes we even provide to them allowances for internet so that they can actually compete in the selection process. You know, so unlocking their potential, providing support even for them to participate in programs is extremely important. And then we provide full coverage scholarship, let's call it, or opportunity, flights, pocket money. We cater for everything so that they can focus on what they are building. That is the kind of approach that we are following, and we bring all of them to Rwanda, and then they meet with each other, they leverage on one another's potential.
Maybe what is the impact?
Yeah.
What is the impact? Because you are taking some young groups to Rwanda to co-create some solution, something like that. So what is the impact in this regard? Yeah.
We have
Make it short.
Yes, absolutely amazing impacts that we see. In next sessions, we'll have the entrepreneurs and the ventures that went through our programs actually communicate as well. But you can see young people from multiple countries actually solving problems for the region. They start thinking not only about Ethiopia, but about the whole region. Just recently, a week ago, from having going through this bootcamp process in Rwanda, two young women in the medical sector, one doctor and one a health professional, another one, they came back to Ethiopia, but their idea, the inspiration that they got was from Rwanda. They saw there was this tea that mothers in Rwanda use and drink to increase lactation. And they adopted that idea. They saw the resources are in Ethiopia as well. Because they have also experienced, there were a lot of challenges, particularly for women in the urban settings when they go back to work after having babies and everything. This was a problem. So now they come with that business idea. They're launching their businesses. They already have products. Idea and the inspirations they got from Rwanda, the solution is here. They are now trying to see, even they are sourcing some of the ingredients for their products from Rwanda, but they also have part of the ingredients and inputs here in Ethiopia. So this is only one example. And we work with 50 young people per cohort per year, and we take 2 cohorts. The list could go on. It's an immense opportunity that we have, and the impact is great. And soon enough, we'll hear a number of success stories bridging the gaps, you know, all the ratified African free trade market already being done by the young people. The practice already there.
Okay, thank you. Finally. David.
Can you repeat the question? Can you repeat the question?
Question.
Yeah. So it's basically the impact of what we do, right? The impact of what we do.
Resources, sharing resources.
The resource
Yeah.
sharing. I will be very brief. I think it's always important to answer the question, why are we doing something? The why is very important, in my opinion. So at Nkomoko, the why for us is to help that person, the refugee, maybe in Kakuma or in Kabribaya or Obare or Shadar or wherever. If we answer that question, why are we doing it? So the resource sharing and everything kind of falls in the right place. So why are we doing that? We see there is a potential. If we kind of give them a small push, they can kind of contribute to a big economy where they're staying. So we operate in 5 countries, for example. All the learnings that we get from the 5 countries are kind of shared among the different markets that we operate. Those kind of little things are very important. Otherwise, it becomes a mere activity that is kind of a feel-good exercise. For most people, we gather around, we talk numbers, then we feel good about it. Then at the end of the day, we don't know what the outcome is at the end of the day, what learnings are there, and it is really tough. There are a number of hubs. I was lucky enough to work in a private equity fund, in a venture capital space, in social enterprise. The most important lesson that I learned is being intentional in what we do and kind of have a real hand-holding kind of exercise in every aspect and kind of measuring everything that we do and kind of continuously improve on that and share that across the board. In my previous work, I worked in a social entrepreneurship ecosystem, working in like 14 countries in Africa, Eastern Europe and everything. There is no one fits all kind of system for all. But there are learnings that every entrepreneur in every corner of the world kind of shares. So having a platform to kind of grasp that idea and adapt it to our own situation is really important. I give you one example and I'll finish. In Nkomoko, we kind of support refugees to kind of have access to investment or loans, a soft loan. We do it through bank and microfinances. In the last year, we have invested around $1.5 million, and our repayment rate is around 91.5, which is very impressive. Okay, that's a good number, but what does it mean to us? If we share this idea, what does it mean to us? For the MFIs or the banks, this is a potential client that you can produce a product for. That will be sustainable at the end of the day. So you look at a refugee and say, oh, they're just receiving aids. Can they be transported enterprises? There is a living proof. More than 1,000 micro businesses access to loan between 100,000 to 5 million and repaid on a rate of 91.5. For any MFI leading professional, that's a potential market that you produce some kind of product and kind of provide them a financing that you get the highest return on it. We provide a soft loan. So you can design something out of it. So lessons needs to lead to proper actions. Otherwise, it's just an activity. I think most of you maybe sat down the last 1 week in similar kind of settings. But why are you here for? What are you going to take out of it? The why is very important for people sitting here and getting the opportunity speaking, and for you sitting there and listening. What are you going to do about it? Is it a mere exercise of sitting and listening? We've been listening to this for the last couple of years. So it's important to kind of have a proper action item. And the impact, as you mentioned earlier, is not going to come tomorrow or the day after. It's something that needs to be measured over a very long period of time. So when Brooke answered, it's important. That's an indication, not a proper impact at the end of the day. But we'll see a trajectory. We'll see a direction, something that's going to happen with all this big entrepreneurial ecosystem. And when we reach that critical mass, it's going to boom. There is no doubt about it. But there are macro and micro level issues that we need to handle. So lessons learned need to be shared and kind of measured and improved every time, in my opinion, from what I've experienced.
Okay, thank you so much. So our panel discussion title is Building an Inclusive and Resilient African Entrepreneurship Ecosystem through Talent and Innovation Support Program. So it is, we should not leave it for tomorrow, as Professor said. We need to build an ecosystem that is very inclusive, that will enable us also to share resources. And I will end up the discussion with Africans need to be, should not be consumers. Rather, we need to be producers. So let us join together to build a conducive entrepreneurial ecosystem that accommodates all. Thank you, the panelists, for coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much, ladies and gentlemen. Would you also put your hands together for the moderator, Alan Frey, for the wonderful moderation of that important session on building an inclusive and resilient African entrepreneurship ecosystem through talent and innovation support programs. It was very, very insightful, practical, and something that we can really, really tap a lot from in terms of broadening and expanding and also polishing the entrepreneurship ecosystem in Ethiopia. Regardless of the fact that the EDI is a very young institution of almost 3 years old, it has done a tremendous job over the past 3 years, enjoying probably its golden era. It is doing a commendable job in building the Ethiopian entrepreneurship and innovation landscape. It is now highly reputable, including with the global body like the UNCTAD, for its wide trainer base, breadth and depth of its programs, and the remarkable results it has registered. So, job very well done, EDI. We're not going to keep you for long and standing between you and your lunch, so we'll go for lunch now. We have exactly 1 hour, probably plus or minus 30 minutes, depending on how early we want to start the afternoon session. But take it as a 1 hour session. So go down, have your lunch, network. Also, this is a networking opportunity with people, and especially with the panelists. If you have any questions or comments or whatever, you can get more insight by talking to them, and also amongst each other. This is also a forum for connecting and creating more opportunities for yourself. Thank you so very much. A big round of applause for everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Have a wonderful break for lunch, and see you in 1 hour back here. Thank you. So to just let you know, the lunch is downstairs on the ground floor. So go and have your lunch early. Bon appetit.